Ask most people who the strongest wizard in The Lord of the Rings is, and they will usually say Gandalf. That answer feels obvious because Gandalf is the wizard we follow, the wizard who faces the Balrog, returns from death, and stands at the center of the war against Sauron. But Tolkien makes this question much trickier than a simple duel.
If by strongest we mean official rank, Saruman begins above Gandalf. If we mean knowledge, craft, and the ability to bend other minds, Saruman has an even stronger early claim. And if we mean the wizard who most fully becomes what a wizard was sent to be, then the answer changes again.
The strongest wizard is not simply the one who can throw the brightest fire or win the cleanest fight. In Tolkien's world, strength is tested by what power is for. So the real question is not only who had the most power, it is who used power rightly. The first thing to clear away is the idea that the wizards are just talented old men with staffs. Gandalf, Saruman, Radagast, and the Blue Wizards are Istari, and behind that name is something much older than Middle-earth's kingdoms. They are Maiar, angelic spirits of the same broad order as Sauron, though not equal to him in history, ambition, or ruin. They are sent into Middle-earth in aged bodies with weariness, hunger, fear, memory, and limits. That last word matters most. The Istari are not sent to defeat Sauron by becoming a rival Dark Lord with better manners. They are sent to advise, encourage, awaken courage, and help the free peoples resist evil without being enslaved by their helpers. This means a wizard's strength cannot be measured only by spectacle. A wizard who dominates everyone might look powerful, but he would already be failing the mission. A wizard who kindles courage in others may look weaker, but he may be doing exactly what he was sent to do. That is why the strongest wizard debate has two layers. There is the visible layer of staff, voice, fire, lore, and command. Beneath it is the deeper Tolkien layer, obedience, humility, pity, and resistance to the desire to rule. If we begin at the start of the story, Saruman has the strongest claim on paper. He is Saruman the White, the chief of the Order, the head of the White Council, and the wizard most associated with organized authority. He is not a fool pretending to be great. In Saruman's case, that greatness is learned, ancient, persuasive, and dangerous. He has studied ring lore, the devices of the enemy, the arts of craft, and the machinery of power. His voice alone is treated like a weapon. At Orthanc, even after military defeat, Saruman can still pull at the wills of those who hear him. He can sound wise, wounded, reasonable, kingly, and forgiving, all while trying to bend the listener back under his influence. That kind of strength is easy to underestimate because it is not a lightning bolt. But in Tolkien, words can be perilous, counsel can heal, and counsel can corrupt. Saruman also understands systems. He builds, recruits, spies, bargains, breeds, imitates, and industrializes. He is the wizard who most resembles a ruler, and that resemblance is exactly the warning sign. So if the question is, who begins with the highest office, the deepest technical craft, and the most obvious institutional power, Saruman is the answer. He is the wizard who looks strongest before the moral test begins. Saruman's tragedy is that his strength turns inward. He studies Sauron so closely that he begins to imitate him. He tells himself that he is being practical, but practicality becomes appetite. He wants the ring not merely to defeat the Dark Lord, but to replace him. That is the fatal difference. Saruman does not only want victory over evil, he wants the power to order the world according to his own will. This is where Tolkien quietly reverses the power ranking. Saruman gains armies, furnaces, spies, and a terrible voice, but he loses the reason he was sent. His strength becomes self-consuming. The more Saruman grasps at mastery, the smaller he becomes. By the end, he can still wound, poison, deceive, and ruin, but his greatness has curdled into spite. He is not merely defeated by stronger force. He is revealed as a failed wizard. That failure matters because the Istari are not graded like siege engines. Their power is bound to purpose. Saruman may be stronger in domination, But domination is exactly the temptation he was supposed to resist. In that sense, Saruman is the strongest wizard only if we use Sauron's definition of strength. Tolkien does not.
Gandalf's claim begins in a much less flashy place. Before he is the White Rider, before he breaks Saruman's staff, before Minas Tirith, he is the Grey Pilgrim who walks roads, smokes with hobbits, listens to stories, and arrives where hope is thinning. That does not make him weak.
It tells us what kind of power he has. Gandalf is wise enough to fear Sauron, humble enough not to trust himself with the ring, and patient enough to work through people who look insignificant to the mighty. Círdan sees something deep in him and gives him Narya, the Ring of Fire. That gift is not about making Gandalf a battlefield sorcerer. It is about kindling hearts, resisting weariness, and keeping courage alive when the long defeat feels inevitable. Gandalf's greatest works often look indirect. He brings Thorin to Bilbo. He brings the ring to the council. He guides the Fellowship, trusts Aragorn, awakens Theoden, strengthens Pippin, and helps the West choose a desperate strategy that gives Frodo and Sam their chance. He also refuses the ring. This is one of the most important measures of his strength. Gandalf understands that if he took it, he would try to do good through domination, and that would make him terrible. That refusal is not weakness, it is spiritual discipline. Saruman falls because he believes he can handle power. Gandalf endures because he knows he cannot use evil as a tool and remain himself. The most obvious proof of Gandalf's raw power is the Balrog. On the bridge of Khazad-dûm, Gandalf faces a being of ancient terror, another spirit from before the world in a body of fire and shadow. He does not simply wave a wand and win. He stands, forbids, breaks the bridge, falls into darkness, pursues the enemy through the deep places of the world, climbs to the peak, and dies after victory. That fight tells us Gandalf is far more than a clever counselor. He has real spiritual and martial power. But the meaning of the battle is not just that Gandalf has a higher combat rating than everyone else. The meaning is sacrifice. Gandalf spends himself completely in the defense of the quest. He gives his life, and because his task is not finished, he is sent back. When Gandalf returns as the White, the hierarchy has changed. He is no longer merely one wizard among several. He is the answer to Saruman's failure. Gandalf says he is Saruman as Saruman should have been. That line is devastating. It means Saruman's office has been emptied by betrayal, and Gandalf now carries the authority Saruman forfeited. This is why Gandalf the White can break Saruman's staff. It is not just a stronger wizard beating a weaker wizard. It is judgment on a servant who abandoned his charge. Radagast is often dismissed too quickly. Saruman mocks him, but Saruman is not a trustworthy judge of anyone who does not resemble Saruman. Radagast belongs more to birds, beasts, forests, and the living world than to councils and thrones. Still, Tolkien does not present Radagast as the strongest wizard in the central struggle against Sauron. He helps indirectly, and his connection with animals matters, but he does not carry the main burden of command, counsel, or confrontation. The Blue Wizards are more mysterious. They go into the east, beyond the main map of the story, and Tolkien's notes about them are not perfectly uniform. In some ideas, they fail or become the roots of strange cults. In later suggestions, they may have weakened Sauron's eastern power. That uncertainty makes them fascinating, but it also makes them hard to crown. A hidden wizard might have done enormous work far from the Shire and Gondor, but the story does not give us enough to say either Blue Wizard is the strongest. So Radagast and the Blue Wizards widen the question, but they do not overturn the central comparison. The real contest remains Saruman's corrupted brilliance against Gandalf's faithful wisdom. So, who is the strongest wizard in The Lord of the Rings? If you ask at the beginning, and you mean rank, lore, craft, voice, and worldly influence, the answer is Saruman. But if you ask by the end, and you mean the wizard who most fully fulfills the purpose of the Istari, the answer is Gandalf. More specifically, it is Gandalf the White. The key is that Tolkien does not treat power as neutral. Power always asks what you want to do with it. Saruman wants to order the world, and that desire turns his wisdom into tyranny. Gandalf wants others to stand freely against darkness. He guides rather than possesses.
He commands when he must, but he does not seek a throne. That is why the story lets Saruman look stronger before it shows us that his strength is hollow. He can build an army, but he cannot master himself.
He can study the ring, but he cannot resist wanting it. Gandalf can face a Balrog, return from death, confront the Witch King, break Saruman's staff, and lead the final resistance. But his deepest strength is still restraint. He has power, and he knows why he must not use it like Sauron.
So the clean answer is this. Saruman is the strongest wizard by title at the start, and Gandalf is the strongest wizard by truth at the end. In a lesser fantasy world, that might sound like a technicality. In Tolkien, it is the whole point. Thank you for keeping the Black Quill Society company in the archives tonight. If this little council of suspicious old men earned its candlelight, subscribe, pull up a chair, and I will see you in the next one.